Guys, tens of thousands of workers are being fired and replaced with AI every single month. In fact, last month, AI was responsible for 40% of the layoffs. It was the #1 cited reason for layoffs last month. But what if I told you that half of the companies that are making these layoffs are actually going to regret it, and by 2027 are going to start backfilling all these positions? But it doesn't stop there, because the people that are going to be hired back are not going to be performing the exact same roles. They're going to be performing similar roles, but with different job descriptions. And in today's video, we're going to be covering what do those job descriptions look like and what are the core skills going to be in order to get back into the workforce. And this is a really important topic, because if you want to stay relevant and you want to be financially free in this new world, understanding what companies are looking for and what clients are looking for and customers are looking for is pretty important, I'd say. And if you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe, because 6 days a week, we're going to be covering the #1 thing to understand in today's economy, which is what skills are relevant and how is AI impacting the workforce. And by the way, if you have a great comment, leave it below. I've pinned great comments in the past. I'll pin them in the future because I want to hear from you. This is a community-led discussion. Anyway, according to Gartner, by 2027, 50% of companies that attribute layoffs to AI will rehire staff. But it's going to be under different job titles, of course. But listen, don't just take my word for it. Kathy Ross is the Senior Director Analyst at Gartner Customer Service and Support Practices. And what she says, quote, is while AI-driven layoffs have captured attention, the reality is more complex. Most recent workforce reductions were influenced by broader economic conditions rather than automation alone. As organizations encounter the limits of AI and rising customer expectations, they will need to reinvest in human talent to sustain service quality and growth. And turns out, this checks out exactly. AI is amazing, extremely powerful. If you stick around, I'll give you an example of how I saved about 3 hours today using AI, but it has issues. There's problems, and we're going to cover that as well. It hallucinates, it gives bad data. Quantity versus quality. How many of you have been forwarded a document or something that someone generated from ChatGPT and it's just 30 pages of nonsense? Something that could have been said in 2 sentences takes 3 paragraphs. That's not good. We want quality, not quantity. Not to mention, when I'm researching and putting numbers together for the show, half the time the numbers that ChatGPT gives me are just incorrect. And as I reference and look at citations, I'm like, that number wasn't even close. What are we talking about here? Anyway, it needs to be properly trained. It needs to be properly checked. And this, my friends, is much like a new employee. You might say that AI just never can do what a human does, but if you're training a new AI, it is pretty comparable to training a new employee. You need to give them standard operating procedures. You need to make sure they can properly interpret first-party and third-party data. You need to make sure that you have a flywheel of kind of like doing quality control on what they do. It's actually the same thing. And I think this, by the way, is one of the hardest things about being a business owner, is putting these SOPs in place to train humans. In fact, I think learning how to train AI actually is going to give you a lot of organizational and operational skills for leading people. I'm getting away, by the way, from that term of managing people. I don't like that term, management. Managing people, it doesn't sit right with me. Anyway, you want to lead people, you need standard operating procedures, you need quality control, all that. It's the same thing with AI. Because the reality is, if left unfettered, AI, especially AI agents, can just burn your company to the ground, much like Lego minifigs. By the way, side note, have you been following this Lego minifigs story? Absolutely crazy that a company could just burn their brand reputation to the ground as fast as Bricks and Minifigs has done. It is absolutely crazy. I'm not going to get into all of it, but it is absolutely crazy. I will mention, though, on the Bricks and Minifigs, as I go on a little aside here, is that there was a point where one of the creator, who's basically a journalist who is trying to, okay, I'll give you the backstage. Bricks and Minifigs is a franchise, and a customer had asked one of the Bricks and Minifig stores to sell their Lego products. And essentially what happened was the store got transferred to another owner and all the Legos went missing, $200,000 worth of Legos. And long story short, going back and forth, couldn't find the Legos, huge legal battle with Bricks and Minifigs. But at one point, this YouTuber journalist who was putting the story together actually used AI to kind of create a trick confession, and it was pretty ingenious and a little bit shady at the same time. Anyway, long story short, if you've heard about the bricks and minifigs, it's absolutely crazy. And I bring this example up because if you don't know what you're doing with AI, it can absolutely destroy your company, both from a quality control and a respect factor, but also from a price standpoint. In fact, there's a story we covered a couple weeks ago, put a link to it here, where a company burned through $500 million, 500 million tokens worth of cash, $500 million worth of tokens in just 1 month. Why? Because they wanted all of their employees to token max, AKA max out on tokens, use as many tokens as possible. And yeah, that obviously is not good. We want to use AI, but are we going to waste $500 million? That can't happen. That can't happen. And I think it really exemplifies the problem that a lot of people and companies are having. Yes, AI, absolutely. AI agents, AI automation absolutely saves time and increases productivity, but without the right standard operating procedures, without the right team that can execute, it is counterproductive. It actually hurts more than it helps. In fact, I've been asked by people, I was talking to someone the other day about YouTube. That's a big part of what I do, YouTube consulting. And I was asked by someone the other day, well, you know, you have 300 comments you haven't responded to, and I'm trying, guys, I just get so many comments to respond to. Why don't you use AI to go through and respond to all the comments? I said, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. If you get a comment, if a reply to your comment, that is me, guys. It is not an AI agent. I've thought about it, but I don't want to go that route. This is me on the video, it's gonna be me in the comments. So if you leave a good comment, you get a like or a reply, that is me. And it's tough to keep up because there's so many of you guys who are interested in this topic. Anyway, long story short, what's happening here is there's a boomerang occurring here, okay? Companies laid off a bunch of people, replacing them with AI, but now they're realizing that robots just can't do everything, as for some of the reasons I mentioned before. But in addition to that, you know, people don't love talking to robots. Do you love talking to a robot? When's the last time you called and got an answering service and you're like, please let me speak to a robot? I don't think I've heard anyone ever say that before. It's always, let me talk to a human. Okay, and that's another factor where the boomerang's happening. And I think the problem that we're seeing here is, yes, AI is powerful. Yes, it's important. Yes, it's probably the future of work, but there's a skill gap in the execution. And let me give you an example that's a little bit abstract here. Pastor in my previous church had this great analogy where he said, there's a difference between the way that babies and children, and basically the way that kids and humans, adults, excuse me, let me back it up. There's a difference in the way that kids and adults process information. Kids' brains are like sponges, and adults' brains are like filters. And it's, I think, similar in AI, right? Because the AI is just a sponge. It's bringing in all the information. It does some filtering, but it requires a human to go in and filter the good from the bad. And I'll give you a perfect example of how I roll this out today. I'm using Claude Cowork. It is amazing, incredibly powerful. And I wanted to build out an entire funnel basically from scratch using Claude. So I started out, I gave Claude a very big prompt and I said, go ahead and execute. And I did this in 4 different steps, but what it did was it created a beautiful PDF lead magnet. It created a form in my CRM so people could fill out to receive the lead magnet. It created a email drip workflow automation, did it all, wrote all the emails as well in the drip campaign, plus the weight, plus the tagging, all of it. And then it was able to create, embed the form on my website so that people could fill it out on my website and then deliver it. The whole thing done. This, guys, in the past, this probably would have taken me 3 to 5 hours. Now it took me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let's say, because after it went through each step in the process, I would double check, make a couple tweaks, and then go. This is the power. This is the power. But what people don't understand, I think, is that you can't just set it and forget it. It does require human hand-holding at certain points. You need to be the filter. And guys, that's where it's going to matter. As Gartner said, 50% of companies that have gone through mass layoffs are going to regret it. Zuckerberg admitted it just this week. Post a link to the video here. Zuckerberg admitted that mistakes were made. We've seen other companies like Salesforce and Klarna backtrack on mass layoffs. So before you crash out and get really upset at your boss, or your company, your employee, your customers, why everyone's firing me, do not fret, because you're down but not out, boys. You're down but not out. If you understand how to deploy these agents, how to deploy Claude, how to put yourself as an important critical function in that flywheel, I think you're gonna be good. I think you're gonna be incredibly, incredibly valuable. At least that's where I put myself. Anyway, want to hear your thoughts. Put it in the comments below. What's something that you've built? Am I off base? Am I right? Where am I at in this process? And let me know in the comments below. If it's a great comment, I'll pin you. If not, I'll try to check it out and reply to it. In the meantime, guys, check out yesterday's video. Really, really important topic there. And I'll see you there, boys. See ya. Peace.